All right, I hope you guys are doing well. Moving on here. Hopefully, you checked something out on Pearl Harbor yesterday, since that's something we should never forget that day. 12/7, date that lives in infamy. All right, so moving on here today, we have a bell ringer for you. So, describe what sensation and perception is. How do these two terms work together for us to understand stimuli? All right, there you go. So, I'll give you a few seconds if you want to pause video now, and I'll go over this here soon. Okay, so describe what sensation and perception is. How do these two terms work together for us to understand stimuli? So, a sensation, we're receiving signals, right? We're receiving a wave either through vision, auditory, touch, taste, smell, right? Vestibular, who knows what it might be. And that sensation is being sent through like our sensory neurons, right, to our brain. And that stimulus, that sensation is being, it's almost like it's a path, right? It's almost like a signal being sent to our brain. And then perception is how we perceive these certain sensations, okay? How we make sense of it. And we're going to talk today about transduction and how these two work together in order to make sense of what we're sensing and what we're feeling, tasting, touching, smelling, whatever it might be. So, our sensation is just how we're retrieving, how we're receiving these certain signals, whether it's auditory, vision, whatever it might be, smell, okay? And perception is how we make sense of it, okay? The process of making sense and understanding what we're sensing at the current moment, okay? And again, that's a process called transduction, which we'll talk about today. So these two terms work together for us to understand our world around us, okay? How we try to react and make decisions, judgments off of what's going on in the world around us, okay? It might be in sports, how we react to certain stimulus, okay? Whether it's catching a ball, whether it's shooting, whether it's taking a shot in wrestling, who knows what it might be, or it just might be the way we react in driving to school, taking a test, um, when we're about ready to eat a meal, okay, how we're taking in all these senses and making sense of it, how we're understanding what we're about to do. All right, so that's a bell ringer for today. Again, vocab is not due yet, so don't worry about having that done yet. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to have a test anytime soon. Okay, so moving on here real quick. So we went over through these pictures, which I thought were very interesting, and how our mind might play tricks on us and understanding what we're visualizing, what we're seeing. Okay, and with the Mona Lisa, obviously, you can see that the face is flipped upside down. But with this picture, we had no idea. It kind of looks like a regular, normal face. When you look at it and focus on it a little bit more, you can tell the two images are different. But we know that with this face here, it doesn't look too different than what we see over here. Obviously, she's frowning instead of smiling, but if we flip it upside down, that face is totally different from what we're visualizing, what we're seeing. That's kind of how our brain plays tricks on us, which I think is pretty cool. All right, so for today, we're going to talk about transduction. And we talked about the neuron, the different parts of the neuron, how we receive information. And we talked about the process of how a neuron fires to send information to our brain, from our brain, okay, in between two neurons, whatever it might be. And with neuron firing, this is going to be relating how we sense the world around us. All right, so we already know that although it seems our brain interacts directly with the outside world, it does not. We have senses to do that for us. And we perceive the world around us for what we make sense of, our memories, our emotions. Okay, a process called transduction. Okay, how we sense the world around us. And it might be totally different from how other people do that. Okay, I always often wonder that. What's my cat thinking right now? What's my cat sensing right now? What's he doing? Half the time, it just seems like he's upset and really angry with me constantly. But again, we sense the world around us. And with vision, okay, with people who are colorblind, how do they visualize certain things? Do they see different colors? How do they understand what brown and red was when they really couldn't see it before? All right, my dad's colorblind. I always ask him that. He's just like, I just know. I just know. Oh, okay, that makes total sense, right? But yeah, so with perception transduction, this is how we're understanding the world around us, the senses. Okay, and our brain actually doesn't interact with the outside world. Our senses do that for us, and our brain just makes a perception of what we're visualizing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, whatever it might be. All right, and then the brain senses the world indirectly because the sense organs convert stimulation into language, the nervous system, neural messages, right? We talked about how a neuron fires and how those messages are sent to the brain from the brain and between two neurons to understand what we're doing. All right, so in short, the brain never receives stimulation directly from the outside world. It's almost like a person just sitting around playing a VR game and understanding the world around him, but realistically, he's playing World of Warcraft. But that person's making decisions for people that actually sense and do the jobs. It's funny how that works. All right, so transduction. We'll talk about how hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, all these different things are work together and just really pick apart how we receive these messages and how that's sent to our brain to understand a little bit more in detail in the next coming days, maybe in a week here. But all the sense organs, it is the job of the sensory receptors to convert incoming stimuli information into electrical chemical signals, neural activity. And that's called transduction. Sensory process that converts energy such as light or sound waves into the form of neural messages. So when receiving a stimulus, okay, it might be, let's say we're hearing something, our favorite song, okay, that is sending a neural message to our brain, okay, a signal. Okay, it's sending a signal through to our brain to understand. It's like, you know what? I remember hearing this song before. I love this beat coming up. It's something that really excites me, motivates me to get through my day, whatever it might be. Now, obviously, songs are very different with people. Some people might like country, rap, rock, heavy metal. Who knows, right, Rooster? So with transduction, it's how that stimulus is being converted to a neural message. And a way to think of it is like a barcode. I think I have that as the next one. It's like a barcode. Okay, so like when you're going to Walmart or you're going to Redner's, or well, I guess there's no Redner's around here. Sorry, but yeah, let's just say there's you're going to Walmart. You grab an item off the shelf. You come over to the self checkout. Obviously, let's just say you have your stimulus, which is, I don't know, Oreos. I love Oreos. So you grab Oreos. You grab the Oreo cookies. You're just like, okay, this is like the stimulus right here. And then the computer is like your brain, which understands it. So when you slide that barcode over, it scans it. Okay, we can call that almost transduction, the way it sends that information to the computer to be processed. Right? That computer knows what what you swiped across the scanner because it sends that code, a transduction, right? It converts that energy into neural messages for us to understand, well, the computer to understand what you just checked out, what you just bought. And I think that's a great way to understand how transduction works. Okay, although it's like almost amazing how that works, these numbers, and how they can understand what product you bought by just scanning the code. But that's kind of how our brains work as well, with this sensory information all around us, how our brain makes sense of it, okay, and how we react to certain things, or how we have a certain emotion towards certain stimulus. It's pretty amazing. All right, so with light waves, we'll talk about this more in detail with how we visualize certain items, how we visualize certain things, okay, and how light is actually bounced off certain objects, and the way the light reflects off that object is how we visualize color, right, which is interesting, which we'll talk a little bit more about. All right, so the process of transduction, like I said before, it's almost like a barcode, right? So transduction begins with the detection by a sensory neuron of a physical stimulus. So this might be something like sound. Okay, you have, you're all sitting in class here, and I hear your phones go off, or with Dom especially in the back, with his phone vibrating off the desk or inside the desk, right? We can hear it. We can constantly hear it. And when the appropriate stimulus reaches the sense organ, it activates specialized neurons called receptors. So these receptors are receiving this neural message, and understanding what we are, trying to understand what we are hearing, or what the stimulus is around us. So the receptors respond by converting that excitation into a nerve signal. All right, so the receptors are receiving this information, receiving this stimulus, and our brain is trying to process that information and really make sense of what's stimulating us at the time. Okay, and with Dom, that's just a perfect example. With that phone going off inside the desk, it vibrates. It's like, oh, what the heck was that? What's going on here? At first, you pick up your head. It's like, how does that making that sound? What's that making that sound? Is it the heater over here? Is it something with that? Is it causing it to disrupt? Is it going to blow up? No one knows. And then you look back, you see Dom sitting there, trying to find his phone inside the desk. But yeah, the receptors, so we're receiving that information, or receptors are taking that information and sends a neural signal to our brain, which we make sense of it, okay, like transduction, right, the barcode. All right, so we already talked about sensory neurons. We talked about interneurons and motor neurons, okay, how we're sensing the world. Sensory receptor sends that information to the brain. Interneurons connect it to our motor neurons, which allows us to react and maybe perform a task of whatever sensory information that we receive. I think that's a pretty cool picture. All right, so a simple example. Here's a cool one, which I think really helps and understands transduction a little bit more. So close your eyes. So the first thing you're going to do is press gently in the corner of your eye. You should see a pattern caused by pressure of your finger, right, which I can see almost like a white, black, I guess you could say it's like a white or black, almost like a cloud in a way. And we know our eyes are closed, but at the same time, we can visualize that. We can see what's going on. We can see what's going on with that pressure that we push on our eye. It's like we want to visualize it. We want to see it. We can see where this is happening onto our eye, and that's how we understand, like with transduction, that information is being sent to our brain. It's like you want to visualize it. You know that that's there, but at the same time, we can't visualize it. The only thing we see is the inside of our eyelids, which I think is interesting. Okay, even though our brain is not receiving directly that signal of vision, we can make sense of it by the touch, and how we can understand with our hand coming up and pressing against our eyeball that has to be there, that is something that we should be able to visualize. That's a way we can trick our brain in a way. I think that's pretty interesting. All right, so remember transduction, okay? It's the way that we are receiving this information, the stimulus around us, and these neural messages being sent to our brain is almost like a barcode. It's amazing how this computer knows exactly what we purchased. Even just with numbers on the barcode that is scanned to the computer, it brings up automatically we bought those Oreos. It's the same way our brain works with visualizing, hearing, tasting, touching, whatever it might be. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. You guys have a good one. I have no video or assignment for you today. Just make sure you know what transduction is and how that works with sensation and perception. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow.